Well, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome. This is our final panel of the day, employee benefits, traditional and non-traditional. We have three wonderful panelists here with us. And I am Caroline Rideout. I am the Workforce Development Specialist with the Maine Tourism Association. This event has been sort of the brainchild of Kat Ference and myself as we're trying to spread the word about the tourism industry to young people, old people, parents, teachers, anyone basically who will listen to us about what it really is to work in the hospitality and tourism industry. And I just want to let our three panelists know I will be asking questions of you. You do not have to look at me. Everyone's getting a crick in their neck from turning around, but it's all good. You could pretend I'm just the omniscient voice above. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Let's start with our panelists introducing themselves. We'd love to hear your name, what your organization is, and its connection to the tourism and hospitality industry. Colby, would you start us off?
Sure. My name is Colby Bracey. I'm the Human Resources Director at the Nonantum Resort. We are a 109-room resort in Kennebunkport. We're open annually from April to December, so seasonal-ish. I think it's pretty clear how we're connected to tourism and hospitality as a resort. But we, in addition to being a hotel, we've got a restaurant. We do lots of special events like weddings and conferences and whatnot as well.
Daryl?
My name is Daryl Deegan. I started a company called 80 Co. And we provide recruitment and temporary staffing solutions for the hospitality industry.
Wonderful. And Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth Bordowitz. I am the inaugural Executive Director of Merit, the Maine Retirement Investment Trust. And our relationship to the tourism industry is that all businesses in Maine will need to be participating in this program over the next year. And we think that particularly businesses in the tourism industry are going to be large participants in the program because there are many businesses that do not offer a retirement savings plan, and we will be offering a retirement savings program. So I'll get into a lot more detail about that going forward.
Beth is going to do a short presentation at the end of our session today, so just wanted to give everyone a little heads up about that. But let's go ahead and start with some questions. So for our panelists, what kind of benefits program does your company offer or propose to other businesses, and how does your offering affect the gain and retention of employees?
I'll go. So we do have a traditional benefits program with health insurance, 401k, but being a seasonal employer, almost all of our employees are either seasonal or part-time or considered part-time. So they don't qualify for the health insurance typically. So we do have lots of non-traditional offerings as well, which include things like mental health reimbursement. We're part of a transportation program that transports people between Sanford, Kennebunk, and Biddeford. We provide 2 meals a day. We have lots of swag, sweatshirts, things like that. There's quite a few things that we've had to think of in order to keep people on board or to attract them. And I think that the non-traditional aspect of our benefits program is what attracts a lot of people to us, just because going into a seasonal type job, most people aren't expecting benefits of any kind. So when they hear that we've got all this stuff and their family can stay with us for $49 and things like that, it's something that they weren't expecting. So it'll attract them a bit more than a competing property that might not give them anything at all.
So the type of benefits that we offer, traditional benefits such as health, vision, dental insurance for all of our employees. The vast majority of them are all full-time. So and then I myself come from a culinary background, so when it came to choosing what type of benefits we wanted to offer, it really came as, well, what is the industry lacking in? And that's when we started offering the traditional benefits. Then we went one step further and started offering things like short and long-term disability, life insurance, bonus structures as well, such as referral bonuses, bringing new people onto our team, performance bonuses as well. And so essentially we just kind of looked at it from the ground up and being like, well, what does the frontline worker really want, and what is it they want to see implemented first and foremost? And we started off, like I said, with the traditional benefits, and then that bled into more on the compensation side, which I'll talk a little bit more about as we go along.
And Daryl, actually, just to clarify, the business that you have started, 86 & Co., you are essentially, you have a bunch of employees under your roof, so to speak. And what is it that you do with them that contributes to the hospitality industry?
Yeah, so we have a culinary task force. Essentially, whenever a restaurant or hotel, whatever type of food service environment it is, we all know there's been an issue with finding reliable staff. So essentially, we are chefs for hire. We can come in for however long an establishment might need, in whatever position they need it in, and we essentially cover for that term. And then when we're all set, the restaurant's all set, we move along to a different environment. So our team gets they get the benefit of being able to change their work environment quite frequently, and it kind of keeps it a little bit more alive for compared to a normal chef job, so to speak.
That's fascinating. I think it's a wonderful concept, actually.
Thank you.
So you've actually already sort of begun talking about the traditional benefits, which I guess we can all agree that would be something like health insurance or retirement services or short or long-term disability. But I wanted to touch on what Colby was starting to mention with the non-traditional benefits that are offered through the Nonantum Resort. And if you could sort of reiterate some of those programs that you started and why, I would love to hear more about how those came to be.
Sure. I think we are always looking to add value to our employees' lives. So we just looked at ways that we could do that. We did here. We're looking for something beyond just compensation. So the things that we've offered include, again, 2 meals a day, a sweatshirt, and other clothing items throughout the year. We do a stipend for BetterHelp online counseling, which is new in the last couple of years that we've been doing, but that's been great. The transportation, it's not directly through us, but we paid money to participate in the program, so any of our employees who live in any of the communities are able to take the bus, and in addition, they can take the buses around Sanford, Biddeford, Saco, Old Orchard Beach using their employee pass. So if they wanted to take it to Walmart or something, they could do that, and that's free for them. We also do an referral bonus program. It's a monthly thing, so every month that our current employees referee stays with us, they get $100. So it's both to refer the person and to keep them as a long-term hire. And I think that's most of what we offer, but all kinds of different things. We also have super flexible scheduling, which I sometimes forget about as far as a benefit, because it's the nature of our business. We're 24 hours and people can kind of work whenever that works for them. But we offer that for our salaried employees too, our office employees. We don't hold anybody to some sort of 8 to 5 schedule, and that's been super helpful for us as well. Especially as we're looking to hire some younger folks that might be young parents. They are really able to work in a way that works for them. And if they encounter any sort of childcare issue, it's not a huge deal if they have to bring their kid to work once in a while. We're very flexible on that sort of stuff too.
Thank you. And for Daryl, I'm wondering, what was one of the impetus, like what reason did you have to start 86 & Co., and were there reasons related to the benefits realm? Because as you said, most people working in the food industry struggle to gain those kinds of benefits. So I'm wondering if that is related to why you created the company itself.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason was really looking for more flexibility, being a chef myself, and I think just to touch upon flexible scheduling, that's one of the biggest factors in us retaining our employees long term, is because they get to tell us what their ideal schedule is, what days off they would prefer to work, what shift times they want to be working. And I think that as employers or managers, we really need to be connecting with our staff more on that particular basis, because work-life balance has to come into play now. And aside from compensation, that's probably one of the next most important factors. I mean, hospitality has been kind of notorious for having long, grueling hours, usually working on a salary. And that's one of the motivating factors behind why I created the company, and to bring on chefs that have that similar mindset is, we want to kind of change the way that this industry has been viewed as, so we can start bringing on fresh talent. I spoke at a community college a few months back, and that was the number one thing that all of these young people were bringing up, is like, I don't want to be spending every single weekend behind a stove. I do not want to be spending all my time, like 12, 16-hour days working in a kitchen. Like, I want to have a life. And I think that is something that we're seeing come through more and more and more with this next generation that's coming up. And, we should really be taking notice of that and trying to re-implement those things now, get ahead of the curve while we can.
Beth, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Not to that. No.
Okay. So, as I'm sure many of you will agree, as we've talked about, the tourism and hospitality industry, given that it's often seasonal, given that it's often temporary, it can be very difficult to integrate a health benefits type of program, which is why it's so important to not only look for traditional modes, but also explore non-traditional approaches as well. So I think it's really great to hear these programs that are coming out of businesses here that are showing to be very successful, and that perhaps there's something that you can integrate into your business as well. But speaking of that, this is a question for our panelists, if traditional benefits aren't a possibility, whether it's because of the seasonality, because it's such a small organization, whatever the case might be, what non-traditional benefits do you think are probably the most paramount for employees within an organization?
I think it depends on what your goals are for your employees. Are you focused on enhancing wellness in your organization? If so, then it's probably something like mental health, sick leave, etc. So I think it depends on what kind of goals that you have for your organization. A blanket statement would be that it's flexibility in scheduling. Everybody wants to be able to choose when they can work, especially if you're a 7-day-a-week business or a 24-hour business. Somebody's got to work on Saturday, so there are people who want to do that and people who don't want to do that. And to offer that choice, I think, is really critical for people. And can't go wrong with food. Everyone likes food.
Carol?
I think because we also do not just temporary staffing, we also recruit for other establishments on a permanent basis, so we headhunt for them. And one of the things that I'm seeing more and more candidates start to request is assistance with accommodation or relocation assistance, if it can be provided. That's probably the largest barrier for talent coming into the state, because in order to get an apartment, someone needs a job, but in order to get a job, they want you to live in the state. So it's a double-edged sword sometimes, and that's something I think that there's actually a business in Lincolnville called Whale's Tooth Pub, and this is not going to be the same for everybody, but they managed to purchase an inn not too far from them just solely for the basis of employee housing. I'm starting to see more hotels offer up portions of their rooms for seasonal employees and beyond. So I think that's another area that if you want to look into attracting talent that's not within this already talent pool, start to look at some more creative ways to bring people into the state. And then just to add to that, the non-traditional benefits, it's something that's unique to you. What is it that you can offer that your competitors can? Probably another example is St. Joseph's College of Maine. I don't know if any of you've heard of them. they offer free education to some of their employees who come on board. And there was a story that was told to me that one janitor put himself and 4 of his children through college completely free of charge. I mean, that right there is employee retention for the long term, because you're able to not only help that individual, but you're able to help their family as well. So look into areas like that that you can become creative with, and I think you'll start to drive talent to your organization.
Thank you. Speaking of housing, I wanted to bring up 2 things. Number one, in our previous session, we actually learned that Sugarloaf did a very similar thing. They bought a hotel that was nearby their facility, and it allowed them to provide housing for a lot of their seasonal employees. But that actually leads into my next question. What are some challenges that you, through your business, or that you have observed other businesses facing in providing benefits, whether traditional or non-traditional, for their employees?
It's the eligibility, of course, and the cost. So providing benefits usually is going to be expensive. Sometimes it doesn't have to be. But I think that if you want to be an employer of choice and you want people to understand that they're valued, you need to spend some money on doing those things. So it's really just looking at your budget and figuring out how you can reallocate money in order to give back to the employees. So yeah, I mean, those are the 2 main hurdles I think that we at least have faced, and I imagine that most small and or seasonal businesses in Maine face. But there's a saying, if you want to, you will. So if you want to add that kind of value to your employees' lives, then you'll figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, I agree on the cost factor, especially when we start to implement health insurance. That was one of the things our employees kind of came to us and said, look, like, it's fantastic that you have this gold plan put in place, but like, I just can't afford it. And so one of the things we implemented was a plan choice, bronze, silver, and gold. So we're kind of allocating to everybody's budgets. Like, they might not want the best healthcare option, but they might want to just have it. So being able to kind of look at that as a way that you can help still offer something, but offering on more of like a sliding scale. And then understanding that, you cannot be everything to everyone. You can't just be able to offer all these different types of benefits just to bring people in the door, because you're going to trip yourself up down the line. What can you reasonably afford to bring in that's not going to hurt your bottom line? That's one of the things I would put in.
And actually, Daryl, you brought up a really good point earlier when you were mentioning St. Joseph's, and how education and having that as a benefit is really beneficial, is quite desirable for many employees. And we were also talking in the previous panel about how that same realm, gaining those training skills, gaining as an employee, being able to say, oh yes, I have gone through this nationally recognized training, and it was paid for by the business where I'm working. And one of the key words that I think a lot of people were coming at it with, because as you both mentioned, the costs can be rather challenging, but viewing it as an investment, not only in your employees, but also in your business. Our previous panel talked about how, even though it was focused on seasonal employees, those employees were going to be leaving in the winter or in the spring for another position elsewhere, and how they helped them write their resumes and create their letters of recommendation and make suggestions on places where they could go, et cetera, et cetera. And by and large, providing that assistance to them, that guidance, actually brought many more of those seasonal employees back to the business when it was time for them to return, when it was time for the height of the season once again. So I thought I would bring that up, that it's a vital piece of this industry. Where am I? Sorry, I'm looking at my list. Okay. So these challenges that we've all talked about, and I'm sure you've all experienced them, how would you say, for our panelists, that you have overcome these challenges to best meet the needs of your employees and your business?
I think that was a good point that you can't be all things to all people. So we've really honed in on what it is our employees are looking for. And like you just mentioned, Caroline, we also do focus on helping connect people to either winter work or school through the community college. And that definitely does leave an impact on people that we want to see them succeed, even if they're not going to be with us for a time. So that I think has been really helpful. Let's see what else. We have reduced our eligibility requirements for our 401k. So although some of our seasonal folks maybe aren't eligible for health insurance, they are still eligible for retirement. So you can kind of manipulate things in that way to at least give them something. And yeah, I think that's kind of how we've overcome. We just really have tried to create a focus. It's been helpful.
Yeah, just I found the direct approach, like you were saying, just asking the employees themselves, like, what is it that you're looking for? Because everyone's unique. You know, someone has to get home from work to pick up their kids from school. Some people want to have a promotion. They want a title. Some people just want to have money. Like, it really just depends, you know, what the motivating factor is behind any one individual. It's good to have a standard, you know, for all of your employees to have a benefit program in place or a solid working schedule. But at the end of the day, what makes them tick? And the only way you're going to find that answer is just by asking them and being able to compile that data on the back end and be like, okay, what action can I take that's not going to obliterate my bottom line, but I can still be able to provide a really good work-life balance or a good benefit program and really just go from there.
Great.
I'm just going to jump in here with just also I think it's important to, as an employer, just to know sort of what some of the options are out there. Like I'm a sole employee, and we were able to set up a Coursera, which I'd never heard of before. So and I'd been around, you know, human resources for a long time. So just knowing that there are options out there, so that maybe you don't have a big budget for health insurance, but you can find a way to find a product that will take the dollars that you have and be able to at least make an effort to offer something for your employees. And there's a huge number of programs and just available to employers, but it's a lot to learn.
And that actually leads me to my next question/activity. I'd like to open up a question to our audience and say, what are some of the challenges that you have experienced in your businesses that you have potentially created some solutions to, or things that you'd like to have some solutions to? If you want to take a minute, think about what you've run into, any issues. Yeah. Thank
you. Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm from Sunday River. So pre-pandemic, we had a daycare that was open to anybody who came to the mountain. Parents don't want to ski with their kids. They just want to, if they're not putting them in a program or if they're too little, they just want to drop them off. And then when the pandemic came, we're in a really small town. We're in Western Maine, and one of the local daycare or whatever was basically overwhelmed with people. They didn't have any more. So we were able to accommodate our team members by that daycare became a team member only daycare. We no longer had it open to the public. Our guests were not super pleased, but we had to take care of the people who were there that we were serving. And since then, it is still just open to team members and then people that live in our local community. And part of it with COVID, we were able to justify it by saying, like, we can't have different kids in here all the time, but it stayed that way. COVID's not here anymore, and it's a huge benefit for our employees, our team members, to know that they can have childcare at a discounted rate, and it's right there at work with them. And the kids come trick-or-treating through the offices, and it's very cute. So that was one of the challenges we faced, and that was how we got around it.
Would you say that an additional benefit to creating that program for your employees is that they showed up to work more
Oh,
and they
absolutely.
stay, having
Yep.
sort of a residual effect.
Because if they did not work there, they could no longer bring their child there. So that retention.
Good point.
Yeah.
Other friends.
Thanks, Erin.
I don't work for this particular industry. I come from the human services world, and have many of the same struggles in terms of turnover and recruitment and retention. But this particular problem, I had about 140 employees before I retired as the CEO of our nonprofit organization. And we had a culture of, I wonder what I can get away with in terms of workers' comp versus a culture of safety. Yeah. So it was, it was costing the agency a lot of money. We were already spending upwards to over $500,000 in health benefits for employees. And so then we had these exorbitant workers' comp costs. And this just sounds so odd, but we instituted a program, a benefit that really involved $10 gift certificates. $10 gift certificates, and every single month we said, I wonder when the magic is going to go away from the $10 gift certificates, but it never went away. And we served 4 specific geographic regions, and so the staff associated with that geographic region, everybody on the staff would get a $10 gift certificate if there were no lost time accidents in that geographic region. Now, obviously, we were not saying who might have made a claim or whatever, so it had to be a lost time accident, not just a claim, but a lost time incident or accident or illness. And it dramatically changed how the staff felt. All of a sudden, it was everybody's business. Your safety is now my business. For a $10 gift certificate. I'm not kidding you. And the deal was, if there was a lost time accident in that geographic area, nobody in that geographic area would get the $10 gift certificate, and then we wiped the slate clean for the next month. So you were only going to go 1 month without, even if the person was out on comp for an extended period of time, you only went 1 month without that $10 gift certificate. And every other month we went between groceries and gas. So, people would just, like, staff would just saying, I went to the grocery store and I bought a bag of potatoes and they were thrilled. I mean, we just could not believe a $10 gift certificate could have that impact on our, first of all, our morale. And whenever people got the $10 gift certificate, I wrote a little safety message to all the staff, and they all got it, and they were thrilled, and most of them were humorous, and so it just lightened everything up, and it really impacted our workers' comp costs.
Well, and it's one thing I like to sort of pull from what you said. I mean, the $10 gift certificates, that's great, that's cool, but it also sounds like that was sort of subsequent. And what really seemed to pique everyone's interest is that, oh, now I'm not the only one thinking about my safety. Someone else is thinking about it too. And someone else on top of that, and someone else on top of that. So it becomes much more of a team mentality. You're looking out for one another, which is also a benefit of working in this industry. Again, so many of the tourism and hospitality businesses, they are very familial. There's a community to them, and it's what brings people back year after year, season after season, whatever the case might be. And it sounds like that program sort of exemplified that sentiment throughout the staff. Right? Does anyone else have a challenge or a program that you implemented in your business, or that you've taken part in, that maybe you worked somewhere and it had a program that you were a fan of?
I've worked with Colby. Last year we had an intern that we wanted to work with us, and she had a housing need. We couldn't offer her housing, but we were able to come up with a small stipend to cover some of the costs associated with it. We wouldn't Obviously, we didn't have enough resources to pay the whole amount, but we offered her a token amount, and that was enough to do it. So it's just that little extra, being able to offer that was important to her. It was important to us. It gave us a better intern because we were able to make that exception. And we've thought about doing it again. We just haven't had the right candidate come along.
Great. Anyone else?
I actually just want to mention a program that I'm seeing coming up more frequently in restaurants or food establishments, which is called a kitchen appreciation fee. I don't know if anyone's heard of that before. It's something that's becoming or gaining some traction anyway. And essentially what it means is at the end of your meal and you get your check, there's been anywhere between 1 to 3% of the bill that's being added on as a kitchen appreciation fee. And it's where the cooks and the chefs and the dishwashers, they actually start to get a cut of this, which is, exclusively it's been for front of house staff, but since this fee has been introduced, it's now the back of house is able to get a portion of that. And when I went out and interviewed a few different restaurant owners about this, and I mentioned we wrote a piece about it, it's surprising how much it affected the morale of the back of house staff, like quite substantially. And this was probably on any given month, it could be anywhere from $200 to $500. And, in peak season, it's a little bit more. But when we were talking to some of the cooks, they were like, yeah, it's actually incentivized me to come to work because if it's a busy night, I get more of a cut. I get the more checks we do, the more we're going to make. And for some people, like that was their CMP bill paid. That was their phone bill taken care of. And when you're a frontline worker or you're, usually on kind of the lower end of the pay scale, literally every dollar counts. And so if you can look at ways or creative ways to implement that in so everyone is inclusive of it, I think it's going to really help with the retention of staff, or it's a way to kind of think outside the box of being able to either retain them or bring more people in.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I was just going to echo what Don said about adding on that as someone who comes from a boutique hospitality background, I think it's important to not look at it as an all or nothing situation when it comes to benefits. Instead of projecting out and marketing that will cover your entire tuition as an employer and all of that, sometimes it's just putting the word out there with your current employees for a retention perspective to say, if there are initiatives in education or coursework that you're interested in, talk to us. Come to us. Maybe we can front that upfront cost of it, and we can do an interest-free payment back that will help you enroll in this program that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to do without that capital to be able to spend on it. And it can be creative in what you're offering without having to, as a small employer, commit to something that's larger.
That's a really good point. Really good, actually. Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to mention, share, contribute? All right. Well, my last question for our panelists. What recommendations would you have for other tourism-centric businesses on building a stronger, more complete, or more comprehensive, rather, benefits program?
Yeah, like I started saying before, you need to focus on what your company's objectives are. So 3 questions you can ask yourself is, are you looking to improve employee satisfaction, loyalty, wellness, or productivity? Question 2, are you looking to attract new talent, retain existing talent, or reduce your turnover? And then question 3, are you wanting to / able to just offer what is legally required? Are you looking to do industry norms or best practices? And so once you have the answer to those 3 questions, you can kind of tailor your offering or even your survey questions to that objective, see what it is that people are looking for within that frame, and then offer something within that. And I think once you start that ball rolling, people will automatically be more engaged and a little bit happier about what it is they're getting from you. And then hopefully you'll be able to add more as time goes on. But just by starting with a very clear focus, I think is a good path.
I actually get this question somewhat frequently when a client will call and be like, you know, we're recruiting for this position. What do you think of the benefits and compensation package? And, you know, how can we improve this? And my answer is always, you know, look at your competitors. Go on Google Maps, do a 15-mile, 30-mile radius around you. Look at what they're hiring for in similar positions and what are they able to offer that you don't. And that lies some of the, or that's where the answer can be found is, you know, if they're able to attract more employees than you can, or if it's better quality employees, what are they doing that you're currently not? Someone mentioned stipends in the audience. That's something we're seeing much more frequently that's being incorporated into a benefits package. A phone stipend, travel stipend, everything's getting more expensive nowadays. So if there's anything that you can do to kind of help on a compensation side, that is that's where I would probably start as well. And then the other thing is if you can have employees work from home, even if it's just one day out of the week, take them up on that. I mean, that boosts morale quite significantly. And one of the things I see requested a lot is a 4-day work week. People would rather work longer days in lieu of having an extra day off. You know, they're able to kind of check a lot more things off of that task list than if they were working constantly. I actually come from Scotland and came over here 10 years ago. And there were two things that shocked me the most about American culture. And the first one was healthcare is wicked expensive. I learned very quickly to not get hurt. And then second, I found it really confusing that paid time off is not mandatory. You know, over there we get 4 weeks. Every single business has to do it. It's regulated by law. But over here, you just have to go to burnout. Like that just seems to be like what the end result is. And so looking at ways that you can increase employee morale by offering that time off or having vacation, personal days, sick days, I mean, it's really going to significantly increase productivity and morale for sure.
The Washington Post did a study recently that 1 day working from home is equivalent in employees' minds to an 8% pay increase.
Wow.
So, food for thought.
Well, wonderful. So at this point, you all had a piece of paper on your chair. If you could grab that piece of paper out, it focuses on the merit program. And Beth is going to do a short talk with all of you to expand on what the merit program is and how it's going to affect all of us very soon.
All right, well, thanks. So, yeah, my role on this is to provide a non-traditional approach to a traditional benefit. So it's a little bit of a sideways way into the panel. So merit is coming to a workplace, to your workplace, and it was developed by the state of Maine to alleviate the retirement savings gap. So basically 41% of Mainers don't have a workplace retirement plan. And that number is actually higher in a lot of other states, but it's still a pretty high number. So the goal here is for the state to provide a workplace retirement plan. So I guess one thing, who here, raise your hand if you do offer some kind of retirement plan? Yeah, so quite a bit of you in this room. And there'll be a role for both those who offer a plan and those who don't. So merit is meant to cover all Maine employers with 5 or more employees that do not otherwise offer a workplace retirement plan. But all Maine employers with 5 or more employees will be receiving either an email or a letter from Merit starting at the end of January. And they're going to either need to register with Merit or to go online and say that they are exempt because they offer a workplace retirement plan, so they don't have to participate in Merit, or that they have less than 5 employees. And we know that for many businesses, that can be a rolling number. It could be 5 one week and 7 the next, or 200 the next. It can move. So it's an annual average, but basically on the day that you apply, whatever number, if you have more than 5, then you're going to register your employees. Employers with 15 or more employees will need to register by April 30th of 2024. Employers with 4 to 5 or more by June 30th of 2024, or they will need to go online and say that they're exempt. So this is a program where the employer facilitates the program, but it's not their program. It is the state's program. So there's no cost to the employer, except there is a little time. If they're exempting, it's under 5 minutes. If they're enrolling, I've watched employers enroll, it's about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how quickly they can do it. But it's a very simple and clean process. And there's no employer fiduciary responsibility. So the employer does facilitate, but it is not their program. All these employers, every employer will receive an email that will have a link or a letter with an email address, and that will have some instructions. If they're exempt, they basically go online, click this link. There's 2 radio buttons, I am exempt, and then the next one, the reason why, and they're done. If they need to upload, if they need to register with the program, they will upload, they will say they're going to register, and then they will walk through a few steps to upload basically their employee data. And that can be, it can be manually done, or there's a spreadsheet form that you can use and upload in bulk. And then the employer's role is now done for 30 days. Then we, the program, will be reaching out to all of your employees 3 times in those 30 days, saying that you are going to have a Roth IRA account open for you, and you'll have 5% of your payroll contributed to that Roth IRA, and you'll be put in our default investment options. However, you can opt out of any one of those. You can opt out of the program entirely. You can change your contribution, or you can change your investments. If they don't opt out, they will be registered, and the program will send information to the employer 30 days later, 32 days later, saying, here are your employees that are now enrolled in the program, and here's how much each of them wishes to contribute into the program. So you'll be able to, as an employer, set that up and then administer that with each payroll. The program will notify you if there are any changes 4 days prior to that payroll, but typically these changes are pretty rare. Anyone who runs a retirement plan knows that generally changes are rare, but they could happen, and we will let the employer know. Employers can make their payroll provider a teammate so that their payroll provider can have a role in the program. And we are working with as many payroll providers who will talk to me. We're working with them to make it, so they're getting ready. A lot of the payroll providers are getting ready to offer this program. The pilot is started yesterday, so we have, as of probably right now, 4 employers who are enrolled. So I've been able to watch and test it out. So far, it's gone very smoothly. The employers who have participated in that pilot like the program so far. And I know a key question probably for people in this room, seasonal employees, do they count? And so they do count for the 5, whether or not you have 5 employees at a given time. But for seasonal employees, as an employer, you have the choice. You can enroll them on day 1 when you onboard, just as part of your onboard checklist, or you can say, I'm going to wait 120 days, because an employee does not need to be enrolled until they have worked 120 days for you. So if this was particularly a big concern of the summer camps. They have a lot of people who are not working 120 days. So if they're going to work 120 days or more, you can do it on day 1, or you can register them on day 120. And one thing that's really great about this program is that big group of people that we talked about in the last session, who might work 1 job in the summer or 1 job in the winter, they'd have the same account. So if both of their employers are in merit, then their account will be the same, and their summer employer will contribute and their winter employer will contribute. So that's my really quick rundown, but I'm happy to take any questions about that. It's a lot to cover in a short time. Yep.
Is there an employee contribution option?
There is not. No, I understand. Sadly, there is not. And a lot of employers are like really happy to have this program that doesn't cost them anything, and would be happy to make a contribution. So there is, because one of the goals of the program is to assure that the employer has no fiduciary obligations or responsibilities. They cannot make contribution. I have heard that this program is established in 6 or 7 other states at this point. And so I have heard of employers who maybe offer a higher pay and suggest strongly that it go into the account, but it's their money. The employee can do what they want with it if they do it that way.
Are there other plans in the works to implement other traditional benefits for employees like healthcare, etc.? Is this a pilot for more things?
I'm not aware of any, which isn't to say they won't come, because I think this was created to address a need, and there's a need in healthcare as well.
And I can sort of speak to that. While there aren't any programs in effect right now, these discussions are starting to come to a real head, and people are getting to the point where they're like, you know what, we need to create these programs. These discussions have been happening for decades, and it seems like in the wake of COVID and the changing mentality of a lot of our incoming workers or people who've been in the industry for a long time and they're shifting to a different role, people are realizing the need is even greater than it ever has been. And so there are a lot of programs that are, I would say, in their infancy.
So quick question. So I'm new to HR, but our company, we offer the 401k after a year. So what I'm hearing is that day 1 or day 120, our full-time employees and part-time and seasonal would be able to participate in merit and then participate in our own 401k?
Sadly, no. So if you offer a 401k, then yeah, you don't have both. And so I say sadly no, but so if you have a 401k, and that's not unusual for it to only be available to full-time employees or to after a year is your plan, then no, they can't offer both. The individuals can sign up for merit, so if they're interested, they can do it on their own and have contributions right from their bank account.
So they can do it on their own. So we can at least provide them the information, and
Yes.
then when we get that information from whoever it is, the powers that be, we'll just say we offer a 401k after a year.
Right. You as a company would go online and just say, yep, we offer a 401k, and that your responsibility is done. And for many companies that offer 401k, you may not even get the letter because we're going to do a match against Department of Labor data. So if you filed a Form 5500, we'll do a match, and hopefully we'll be exempting you without you having to take any action. But there are so many permutations of qualified retirement plans that certainly some employers who offer one are going to get a letter. There might be 5 companies under the same 401k sort of filing. So, but yeah, hopefully we're going to do whatever we can to make this as easy as possible for the employers.
Is that the same for the 403B for not-for-profit?
Yes.
Is there a minimum age associated with this program? Is it 21?
18.
Oh, 18.
18, yes.
Go ahead.
You had mentioned the cutoff date for the larger employers for April 30th. When will we be able to, what's the first date that we'll be able to go on and exempt ourselves, or?
It will be after January. So we're trying to find a date that's going to be right, given the holidays in January and all the employer obligations with end of the year, beginning of the year. So probably around the 3rd week in January, these letters will start to go out. I'll say the website is live now, but what the letter will have is a code that will just facilitate the process for you.
Was there any pushback from employers by saying this is going to cause work for my bookkeeper or my finance department?
So, we have had, knock on wood, very little pushback, if none, because I think what I have found is sort of more like your question. Like, we wanted to be able to offer this, but the 401k is expensive, or I don't want the fiduciary responsibility. Sorry, talking with my hands and then the mic goes crazy. This is the old New Yorker in me. What can I say? But Yeah, but so most employers really want to do right by their employees, and they are making their choice among here. If I have my bundle of money, which is the most important for me to offer, and so there are many employers I've spoken to, and of course I probably am getting not a full view of the entire environment, but they're really like, when can I start? I'd really like to be able to offer this. If it's simple for me and I can do this, I want to bring it on.
Anyone else have any questions?
Can employees opt out of this?
100%, yes. I mean, hopefully 100% won't, but so right now, the national average is about 28 to 30% do opt out, but that's why they'll hear, once the employer registers them, they'll hear 3 times in that first month from us saying, you know, here's your choices, this account's going to open if you don't do anything. And then there'll be some employees that will ignore those letters, and they'll be fine, and they'll just go on, and they won't even really notice that this 5%'s come out of their payroll, and they'll have started saving for retirement. And then there'll be some who will look at their next paycheck and be like, what happened to that money I was going to spend on diapers or CMP or whatever? And they'll be able to call, and because it's going into a Roth IRA, there won't be any penalty if they just call right away and say, I want to stop now. So there's an expectation. We know that that will happen for some people.
So you're making people a Roth IRA and then giving them the information so it's theirs to take care of for the rest of their lives, or are you, like, is Merit keeping that information?
All right, so I'm not sure I understand the question, but the account is the employees. So the employee has that account, and they can, let's say they move on to another job with a 401k and they want to consolidate, roll that into a 401k, you know, that'd have to be the Roth portion of the 401k, but they can do that. So they own the account, and they can do, they can move it into a different 401k plan if they want to. It's theirs. If they move to a different employer who offers Merit, then they'll just keep adding to that same 401k. Same Roth IRA.
And while it's not any cost to employers, are there any costs associated for employees other than the 5% withdrawal from their bank account, like from their pay? As you said, or as I think Nathan was sort of bringing up, who's paying for the maintaining of this system?
Yep. So like almost any retirement plan, there is a per account fee. So this is paid by the employee. It's a $26 annual fee, flat fee quarterly, part of which goes to the state, part of which goes to our program manager, and a 20 basis points asset under management fee. And then we have very low cost funds, which are the investments in the program. So there's some underlying fund fees. So, and relatively, our board, this is a public board that made the decisions in a public meeting, and they did look at, how these fees compare to 401k fees and other, similar investments, and I think they're very competitive.
And is it a stepped system, like depending on what age you are when you get your Merit account? I know that with typical retirement funds or accounts, if you're 25, you put in this much, and it's that $20 a year or whatever the case. But if you're 55, then now you're putting in $55 a year. Is it that sort of a system?
So it's up to the employee what they put in. So it's 5% default amount if they don't make any changes, and it will auto escalate every year unless the employee opts out of that. So it's 5% the first year, 6% the second, up to 10%, and then just stop. And of course, again, the employee can opt out of that anytime. And then the default investment is a target date fund. So it's one of those types of funds that will become more conservative as the investor approaches their retirement age.
So when we enroll all of our employees and 6 months go by and we bring on a new employee and they already have an account, do we get that information from the employee?
Well, it will. you will just enroll them. It almost won't matter from your perspective. So you'll upload them into the system either on day one or day 120, and then the system will say, oh, we already have this person here, and so that money is going into the account that already exists.
There's no information that we need to chase down from employees that we have.
No.
I have a what?
All right. So at this point, I just wanted to ask, does anyone have any remaining questions about traditional versus non-traditional benefits in general? If you had any other questions for our panelists, go microphone.
I don't know where.
Okay, go for it.
So I understand that you can't sort of make everyone happy idea, but I'm nervous about offering something that I know some of my employees will use, like a health stipend for chiropractic or for whatever, and that I know some of them won't use, and I feel like the ones who don't want that will be like, why can't I just have that money?
Right.
Or, and then do I offer a tiered level for the part-time people, or they just don't get anything?
Part 2 is up to you. I mean, I would do something for everybody, but you don't have to, certainly. I think that's the more equitable thing to do. But as far as offering something that not everyone will use, I mean, we've run into that, but not as much as you might imagine. I think people like to complain, but in the end, you're helping some people, and other people it's just not applicable. It's not as though you're hurting them or it's costing them anything. So it's not as big a deal as you might think it is. But the other option would be to offer a choice between two things. If you wanted to do, say your chiropractor thing, and then a gym reimbursement, like you can choose one or the other. So everybody gets something, and they choose what it is they want to use it on, or if they use it at all.
What amount do you guys offer for the Better Health stipend?
Our employees pay $25 a week, and we pay everything else. So it ends up being quite a bit. I think BetterHelp is like $300 a month ish. So we end up with like 2/3 of it.
And I'm not sure if, to go with your question, I'm not sure if it is possible to do this if you don't already offer health insurance, but to sort of cover all your bases, a health savings account can be really great because everybody gets the same thing and they can just use it on health related things. But a health related thing can be, it can be a teeth cleaning, it can be going to the chiropractor, it can be, oh, I need a mental health day and I'm going to go and do this, or as long as it's applicable to personal health.
You can't do that unless you have health insurance and a high deductible plan, but you can do an FSA. So you could do either a healthcare FSA, which people can use on things like premiums, copays, Band-Aids, whatever. Or there's also childcare FSAs that they can use toward childcare expenses.
Or an HRA.
Mm-hmm. So those are some options as well. The HRA is a health reimbursement account.
Yeah, and then there's an HSA, has to coincide with a qualifying health plan, and then an FSA it's a flexible spending account. So so they can use it either. There's healthcare ones or there's childcare ones, and you can contribute a certain amount, and they can contribute a certain amount. Yes, and it's like I think it's like up to $200 or $300 can roll over, and everything else goes away. It's just be careful with that.
Right. Well, at this point, we are all done. It has been an absolute pleasure having all of you here, and please thank our wonderful panelists here. Thank you. At this point, we are going to have just a short break, 15 minutes, but everyone can head right on back to the Casco Bay room. We will be starting our networking activities hosted by Seasonal Connect there very soon. Thank you again for coming.